One of the things I hate the most is that this world is filled with people who try to take advantage of people's better nature, the good parts of themselves. There are scammers who try to find that and they try to exploit it for money. I hate that. And that's what made me go into this deep dive on the Instagram DM to collab scheme. If you're someone who posts on Instagram, relatively small account, and you use hashtags or geolocations, you've probably gotten one of these comments. Somebody will say, hey, DM to collab with us, and it'll normally be like a smaller account, like a variation, and then it'll point you to a bigger account with like 100,000 followers. And if you're like me, the first time this happened, you looked at it and you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I'll be featured on this huge account. I can't believe I've made it. I'm an influencer mom. And you really think like the content I'm making is good, so good that brands want to work with me. How cool is that? Then it happens again. And maybe it happens a third time, and a fourth time, and a fifth time, and you're getting all these comments, and they're all saying the exact same thing, DM to collab, and they all ask you to DM a bigger account. And maybe like me, you get a little suspicious, and you're like, well, someone here is making money. It sure as heck isn't gonna be me. What's going on? That was exactly my brain path when this happened to me for the first time. I knew something fishy was going on and I wanted to know why. I wanted to know who was profiting and what the mechanism was. And here's what I found out. The brands that ask you to DM to collab with them, as you probably have guessed from the title of this video, they're fake. Their entire purpose is to get you, an influencer, and me, an influencer, to buy shoddy products at a huge markup. That's how they make their profit. I want to talk to you about how I found this out, what my path was, the trials and tribulations of being a very tiny little influencer, and how I knew it was a scam. So I was getting a lot of comments from knockoffs of 3 alleged brands. They were called Brute Impact, Valerio, and Urban Ice. Now, like I said, the first time these, something like Shop Valerio Ice would leave a comment on my post saying, hey, we love this, DM the bigger account, Valerio or Urban Ice or whatever, to collab. And again, the first time this happened, I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. Maybe I've made it. So I checked out the account and I saw that they sold random stuff that had absolutely nothing to do with my account. That was my first warning. And my second warning was when I checked out the account and all the bigger accounts had hundreds of thousands of followers. And earlier, like I said, the first time you look at these, you're like, oh my gosh, if I get featured by them, because they promised to feature you, I'll get a couple of those followers. Like surely 100 of those 200,000 people will see me and be like, yeah, cool, let's follow this lady as well. But if you're like me, a little suspicious, you might have checked out some of the posts that these huge brands were posting about. And you might have noticed that they had a very low engagement rate. So what I mean by this is this account, we'll say that they have 200,000 followers like Brute Impact does. They would make a post, send it out to their 200,000 followers, and they'd get like 200 likes. That is a very, very low engagement rate. Like by comparison, I have about 1,000 followers, and even I have gotten 200 likes on some of my posts, which is a much higher engagement rate. This is one of the tells that people use to tell if brands or influencers have fake follower accounts. Engagement is a really important metric when you're trying to find out how invested an audience is in the brand that they follow. Followers are cheap, engagement is not. So that was my second clue, was that these brands, they all had very low engagement rates. So even if I had been featured on their account, I probably wouldn't have gotten a lot of followers from that. Another clue, another crumb on this little trail was that they all of them asked me to DM the bigger account, right? So an account like Urban Ice, Brandy, or whatever their name was, would leave me a comment and would say, hey, message the bigger Shop Urban Ice account to collab with us. And all of them did this. All of the littler accounts would ask me to DM a bigger account. And my theory is that when you get lots of spammy comments, maybe you report them. And this meant that the bigger flagship accounts could continue operating without being influenced if their smaller sort of messaging arms got banned from Instagram. My next clue, and this was probably the most blatant one, I messaged each of them. I DM'd to collab every single one of the brands, and I said the exact same thing to all of them. I said, hi, I got your message. I'd love to work together. And all three messaged me back the exact same post. It was eerie. Like literally it says, I'm reading here. Hi, thanks for reaching out. We've been looking for a few people to collab. Here's the kicker. We'll offer you 50% off the merchandise. As if that's a huge sell, right? And then they give you a 30% commission on anything that you happen to sell to your hapless followers. The weird thing was, two things, if you were paying attention, they sent this message, all three brands sent like the exact same message to me, even though they were allegedly totally unrelated. And they all didn't give me anything for free. They just gave me a 50% discount out of the goodness of their hearts. This to me suggested that it's not just a couple brands using the same strategy. It's a single network, all using the same strategy to try to widen their reach as much as possible. All of the responses were identical, and when I asked them how they found me, even though it was pretty obvious that it was by hashtags and geolocation, they were all like, oh yeah, we've got some scouting teams, and they were really impressed with your work. I was suspicious. So I went to the websites that they pointed me to see if I could pick out some lovely jewelry or something to take home, and this was the next clue in the chain. All of the websites looked very, very similar. They all were kind of spammy, low quality. They all had blogs that were full of outdated COVID information. And all of them, the main point, it wasn't to sell stuff. It wasn't to sell their products. It was trying to get people to sign up for their affiliate scheme. Like all the websites said, become part of the impact, join the impact. The impact is here. The impact. It was all, and that just to me pointed out that they weren't trying to make money by selling stuff. They were trying to make money by getting you, an influencer, to buy a couple things at alleged half price. And this is perhaps the most technical and hence damning crumb in my bread trail, is that two out of the three brands had changes in their username. So Instagram actually lets you check out changes to the username to try to, I think their words are, to help keep their community authentic. And two of the three brands had used usernames that were totally different in the past. And that to me smelled a little bit like inauthenticity. I suspect that they either bought their followers or bought accounts bought accounts that already had an existing larger follower base, maybe like meme accounts or literally anything else. So how did they find me? I was pretty clear that it was hashtags, but even when I stopped using hashtags, they were still finding me. They were using geolocation. So I tag all my images with the Atlanta geo tag because, why not? Maybe it'll get me an extra like. That's what I used to think. And so I went to the Atlanta geo tag location. So I went to all the posts that had recently been tagged Atlanta. And I saw that around the same time that I posted, a lot of other people had posted pictures, and a lot of those had also received the exact same comment. So you can start to see the scheme, right? These bots, I'm guessing that they're bots, go onto Instagram at a certain time of the day, they go into hashtag, they go into geolocation, and they just post the same comment over and over again on as many different accounts as possible. But not just any account. They targeted a very specific subset, and this is what made me the most sad, because they targeted small, typically female people who post selfies. This made me sad because it meant that they did have a strategy, and it was to target a specific group of people who were inexperienced, who like to post pictures of themselves, and who would likely be taken in by this. Because if you're using hashtags and geolocations, you're probably trying to grow your account. You're probably trying to become more of an influencer. So they go out to people who are trying to do, and they promise you that you've done it, that they are brands that want to work with you. And then they ask you to buy their stuff. They give you this 50% discount, but it's all a lie. They're fake from start to finish. And that made me sad and angry, honestly, because they prey on people's ambition and they prey on people's pride, and it works. So let's put all the dots together. Number one, these accounts, this network, creates these big flagship accounts like Urban Ice, Valerio, and Brute Impact. Number two, they sell very cheap merchandise, stuff that's easy to produce, and they sell it at a really, really high markup. Number three, they buy hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers, or they buy accounts that had hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers in order to make it more appealing to influencers, because they promise that they'll have their content featured on their accounts. Number 4, they create, I don't know, potentially dozens of smaller messenger arm accounts. Those are the ones that are responsible for leaving the comments on these small influencer posts. Number 5, they use location and hashtag to target really small accounts and ask them to DM to collab. Number 6, once they've been DM'd, they give the owners an alleged discount to buy stuff and then promise a 30% commission fee. Number 7, they repeat as often as possible. And number 8, their profit comes from influencers buying their knockoff goods at half price. As far as I can tell, the DM to collab is just a strategy that makes it easy for them to reach out to as many people as possible. It's easy to automate comments. It's harder to automate messages. These spam accounts, they want us to buy their crappy stuff, us wannabe influencers. And the method that they use it is they sell us on ourselves. They sell us the story that we're influencers, that we've made it, that brands are reaching out to us, that we create content that's good enough to want to collab. But it's a lie. It is a scam. It's from start to finish, it's a scam. It's fake. It's meant to pull you away from your money in exchange for some cheap merchandise that might not ever arrive at your door. Honestly, the first time it happened, I thought I'd made it. Like I said, I thought this was it. I'm an influencer. It's only up from here. And honestly, it was embarrassing to realize how I'd been fooled. And I'm very grateful to this day that I didn't buy anything, that I thought it was a mistake and moved on with my life. But other people did. Other people have given money to these scams, and that's what makes me the most mad. Since then, I've been contacted by other scams and also by people who genuinely want to collaborate with me. But here are the crucial differences. They contact me. They don't ask me to contact them. They come in up front and they're like, hey, we love your stuff. We think you can provide value. Here are the reasons we think you can provide value, not citing these vague scouting teams. They don't ask me to pay them anything, and they make it clear what they bring to the table. Most times when I get offers to collab, they will bring their half of the value up front. They'll say they can pay me, they'll say that they can give me a wider audience, they'll say that they can get me exposure. They provide their half of the value up front. Shop Valerio, Brood Impact, and Urban Ice are scams. They prey on people by selling a fake dream of having achieved your goal of becoming an influencer. They are trying to fool people. You shouldn't feel bad if you have, because they're good at what they do, but try not to let it happen again. This has been another deep dive into the scams of the internet. I hope you enjoyed this. I always am happy to try to take on scams that prey on the very best part of people, in this case, ambition or thinking that they can do better than they're doing. And I was so happy to find out that it was a scam. And I was very interested to find out how it all worked. It's fascinating to me, the mechanisms of how social networks can make scams happen. So if you enjoyed this, if you have any other scams that you see, any other random stuff happening on the internet, and you want to know what's going on, please feel free to let me know in the comments. And until then, happy writing and happy anti-scamming, hopefully. Bye, everyone.